Freedom, liberty, the American way of life. It's the Matt Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you for tuning in this Tuesday, October 10, 2023. Indulge me with the pleasantries for a moment, and we will get this show lumbering under its own weight. It is episode 431 for us on Super Talk. We appreciate you being here until 3 o'clock this afternoon. We hand the reins of the programming off to Brian Wilson and the drive at that time. There's much to discuss. Obviously, a lot of it having to do with the Hamas attacks on Israel and the response by the Israeli government and the Israeli military. We will continue to break that down, discuss it with you on the phone, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTM. That's also the way to communicate with us via the super text line. That is up and running. If you're shy, that's all good. I understand that has anyone noticed that email has become snail mail and text has become email? Am I late to that party noticing that? Because nowadays, I don't even turn to email for personal correspondence anymore. I mean, some of you will email me, and I respond to every single person that does, or I try to, if it doesn't get lost in junk or whatever. But nowadays, getting any sort of correspondence in the mail is ridiculously rare. That's either junk mail or really, really, really official. I don't know that I get any bills in the mail anymore. Do you get any bills in the mail, Bill?
None at all.
Once again, I have failed to introduce the show in a proper fashion, and I begin communicating with Bell before introducing him. There's Bell Case, the executive producer of the broadcast, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. We appreciate him for that. We're on a variety of platforms. We're on 99.7 FM on the radio dial. We're on any streaming platform of your choosing. Just look up Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and we're on Super Talk TV. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Sign in and follow and like us and do all of those things. We'd appreciate that. It is episode 431 of the Matt Murphy portion of the broadcast day, which is entitled
Matt Murphy. He'll sell his soul, but it ain't cheap. Noon to 3. Libertarian lunch, and we're ordering in.
That's true. All of that is true. I will. I'll endorse just about any side. I mean, I'll endorse. I'll give you a good example. If the money's right, I'll endorse Tennessee Volunteer Football. But you're going to have to pay. You're going to have to pay a pretty penny. I mean, everything's for sale, but some things cost more than others. Anyway, we've lots to discuss on the show today regarding Israel and the latest there. Celebrations, it is difficult to fathom how anyone could celebrate what's going on in Israel. But sadly, not just around the world, but here in the United States of America, you saw celebrations. There's video out of Australia, outside of the Sydney Opera House. Opera. Yeah, that sounds weird. I want to say Opry, and it's not. It's opera. But I want to. Hey, outside the Sydney Opera House in beautiful Sydney, Australia. In Washington, D.C., in New York City, there were chants of "Gas the Jews." Here in the United States of America, all over the country, you had celebrations of the atrocities that are being uncovered in the state of Israel. The scale and the speed and the efficiency of the killing is difficult to understand. It is not hyperbolic to say to you that you have not seen this type of slaughter of the Jewish people since the Holocaust. We now know that there are areas of that country in which we have found babies that have been beheaded. And I'm sorry to have to tell you this during the lunchtime, but I just want to catch you up to where we are today before we hear from the President of the United States. And I need to ask the audience that question. I feel compelled to give him an opportunity, and I will do so without interruption. A lot of times when Joe Biden's blathering, I cannot help but interrupt him. Based on the serious nature of what's going on, I'm going to try to let he might not know it, but he's the President of the United States of America. He might not comprehend it, but he is the commander-in-chief. He might not be aware of everything that's going on around him, but he's the leader of the free world, whether we like it or not, and whether he's actually leading or not. And so
where are you?
I know. I get it. Well, the president is set to make remarks. These are his first remarks since Saturday, which seems an eternity ago. His first direct remarks, and one wonders whether or not he is willing to take questions. No, I take that back. I don't wonder whether he's willing to take questions. I wonder whether he is able to take questions of the press. I cannot imagine a press conference in front of this fella. I cannot imagine Joe Biden standing on a stage for 45 minutes or an hour taking questions from the press. But we'll see, and we will cover that for you live as it comes up. All right, so there are celebrations of Hamas attacks around the world. That is sad to note, but it is true. There is also a celebration of the, quote, decolonization of that area of the world. On Saturday, as the raping and the killing and the kidnapping and the murdering, as all of that was happening in Israel, Najma Sharif, who is a writer for Soho House magazine, posted on X, what did y'all think decolonization meant? Vibes, papers, essays, losers. And as Peter Savodnik writes, Sharif's point was, hey, don't be squeamish. Don't be dissuaded. Never mind the Jewish girl being pulled by her hair with blood streaming down her legs through the streets of Israel. Never mind women being raped. Never mind the corpses outside of the music festival. Never mind the beheaded babies. If you can't handle that, then you don't get it. You're an apologist for Zionist colonizers. According to these pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas types around the world. Yesterday, I asked a simple question. Who are the good guys and who are the bad guys? And I challenged you that if you didn't know the answer to that question quite quickly, I don't think you're paying enough attention. Regardless of what you think about Israel and the state of affairs in the Middle East, there is no justification for this whatsoever. Period. End of discussion. Full stop, as they say. However, there are many that don't want to stop. They want to suggest to you that the Palestinian response and the Hamas attacks are completely justified based on some random assertion that the Israelis are somehow depressing the opportunities of the Palestinians in that region. I would suggest to you that it's the very existence of the state of Israel, it's the very existence of the Jewish people that many of these Palestinians in that region and certainly Hamas hates. And that does not suggest that I am, like Nikki Haley and Lindsey Graham and some of the Republicans, hawkish on the idea of the United States of America going into military conflict with anyone in the Middle East. As you know what? I get criticized for my positions, but let me tell you something I'm not. I'm not hypocritical in my positions. I don't waver on this. Just as I do not desire to go into war militarily with the Russians against the Ukrainians, just as I hesitate as I observe the slow walk to war in that regard, in this arena, I'm steadfast that while we must support our allies through our own strength as one of the few superpowers around the world, the concept of military intervention is not a good one, Because if the United States of America intervenes militarily, that's going to trigger the intervention of other nations in that region, potentially Hezbollah in Jordan, potentially Iran or Iran. I always get it wrong. But here's what we do need to do. We need to support our allies. As Tennessee U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn said yesterday, and 19 of her fellow Senate Republicans joined her in sending a letter to President Joe Biden urging this administration to freeze the recent $6 billion ransom payment made to Iran. Last month, as a part of a prisoner swap, as most of you know, as we discussed on the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Last month, they swapped prisoners. It was like a 5-to-5 swap. And in the swap, the United States also transferred $6 billion of Iranian oil assets that were held in a restricted account in South Korea. They released that money, which, regardless of the justification on the part of the Americans, the manner in which the Iranians receive that receipt, they see it as a sign of American weakness. Marsha and her colleagues are now calling on the Biden administration to, quote, immediately rescind the waivers that allowed Iranian funds to be converted and moved into more accessible bank accounts, as well as to work with Qatar to immediately freeze the accounts containing those funds. To stand by and allow Iran to access these funds as Hamas infiltrates Israel and murders, rapes, and mutilates countless Israelis is unconscionable. Reading from the letter now, your administration claims these funds are only available for humanitarian use, but the money is fungible, and there is a significant risk that they could be used to further efforts by Iran or Hamas against Israel. John notes, and I was about to get to this, John, and I am pleased that you've done so. We have Rashida Tlaib, a sitting representative in the halls of the United States Congress, who hung a Palestinian flag outside of her office door. And not that you can get a Democrat to answer difficult questions during these times, but the question remains, what message are you sending here? Do you believe the Palestinian people support the actions of Hamas? If so, how much so? Do you support the mutilation of babies? Do you support the rape of women? You know what I've noticed? All of these folks that are quick to the punch when it comes to demanding that we see equitable treatment amongst different types of people. All of you culture warriors in the United States of America, where's your cultural sensibility now? I'm fascinated with a lack of conversation. All of these celebrities that are quick to jump on this woke cause or that woke cause, where are you? And when a few celebrities have spoken out regarding their support for Israel, they've been shut down by people in social media. In the meantime, you have these disgusting, as I mentioned, these anti-Israel protesters chanting, "Gas the Jews." If you stepped out and it's like we're picking and choosing that which we allow and that which we don't. I believe in free speech in the United States of America. And you're free to be a complete idiot if you so desire. But the double standard is fascinating to me right now. Yeah, Rashida Tlaib, yes, she did marry her brother. That was to get him to stay in the country or her to stay in the country or something along those lines.
It was Ilhan Omar.
Is it? Am I getting them mixed up?
I think it's
I'm
Ilhan.
getting them mixed up. My bad. That's Omar. Tlaib has her Palestinian flag outside of her office. So anyway, we will discuss these things. We'll talk to you about them if you have any thoughts on the latest. It's difficult to talk about. It's difficult to observe some of the atrocities going on, and I would suggest that these are facts. These are observable facts by reporters on the ground. When hashtag #NeverCNN is on the scene reporting these things, despite their lean to quote unquote attempt to be neutral in all of this, this is not a matter of propaganda. This is not a matter of shared propaganda. This is a matter of reality and the manner in which Hamas does their business. My position yesterday, my position today is just to be clear. I do not believe the United States of America has any interest nor any need to assist Israel in what they have to do. But we do need to stand with Israel to the point that we tell the rest of the world, either in background or publicly, you stay out of this. They did not start it. Israel did not start this, but Israel is about to finish it, and they're about to finish it in Gaza. And if that means raising Gaza, so be it. And sadly, Palestinians who have no active engagement in this will die as a result. Innocent people will die as a result, but every death that comes in Gaza is at the hands of Hamas. Make no mistake. They've done this for years. We've talked about it for years. I am sick to death of it. The Palestinians strike, Hamas strikes, they strike. They kill Jews. And then immediately they say, oh, ceasefire. We got a ceasefire here. Oh, we can't let this escalate. You strike, you kill, and then you throw your hands in the air and say, no mas. We don't want it anymore. Well, at some point, you've got to decide that you're not going to put up with it anymore. And I think that's what Benjamin Netanyahu has done, and I hope the United States of America is there publicly or privately to have his back. It is 12:22 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A quick timeout. We will tell you about the families of the various countries speaking out, particularly the families of American hostages are now speaking out, asking Joe Biden where the heck he is. And the number of countries that are involved will astound you in terms of hostages and dead. It's 12:22 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Jeremy Reeves in Nashville Painting Company would love to hear from you during this fall season, which has become interior painting season. Let's talk about that. If we call the summertime exterior painting season, and by the way, there's always time to paint the exterior of your house. Don't be worried about that. But at Nashville Painting Company, in advance of the holidays, in advance of Halloween, in advance of Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's time that folks pay attention to their surroundings inside of their house and ask themselves, what would the great room in your home look like with a new coat of paint? What about your kitchen? What about your bedrooms? What about all of them? Well, they can do it at Nashville Painting Company. They do it inexpensively. They do it quickly. They'll give you exact scopes and pricing when you make the call for your free consultation. Color consultation involved in said consultation when you make the call to Jeremy or one of his team members at 615-635-0350. 635-0350. They're simply the best when it comes to your paint. Nashville Painting Company has been growing for the 10 years they've been in this community. Go to NashvillePaintingCompany.com or 615-635-0350. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Yesterday was Columbus Day. Columbus Day. No, it was not Indigenous Peoples Day. Mainly because there's no such thing as an indigenous people to North America. We all came here at one time or another. You know what I like to tell people that want to argue that the borders aren't right in the Middle East or want to argue about quote-unquote indigenous peoples in North America? Tell me the time in the world where the borders were right. And then I'll begin the process of talking to you how we get back to those.
You know, my family actually came over here from Russia across the Bering Land Strait Bridge in about 15,000 years ago.
Well, you're close.
Traced it all the way back.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
That's good. You were migrants.
Yes. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Border security just as crappy then as it is today.
Oh, didn't have to worry about a wall or nothing.
You just had to worry about melting. That was about it. That global warming, man. Hey, look, there's a bonus for global warming. We don't have to worry about illegal aliens crossing the Bering Sea. You see, there's an upside to everything around here. We just need to find it. Look long enough to find it. I'll talk more about Columbus Day versus Indigenous Peoples Day. Our best buddy in the General Assembly in the state of Tennessee, Justin Jones. Justin Jones, whom I would remind you 3 years ago, was credibly accused of covering up 2 sexual assaults outside of the Tennessee Capitol, and no one has ever reported on it in mainstream media in the state of Tennessee or in Nashville. I'm talking to you, Phil Williams. You ought to do your damn job and report on that story if you're so interested. Anyway, Justin says that we ought to call it Indigenous Peoples Day, to which I say, who are the indigenous peoples that you speak of? Because I don't know of any of them that exist. And, oh, by the way, this is coming from a guy whose grandfather's Cherokee Indian. So I got some bona fides in this fight, and I don't think the Cherokee are indigenous peoples or the Creek or anybody else for that matter. John is next on the show to talk about the Middle East. John, well, I don't know if he is or not. I can't make John work on my side of things. Can you? Oh, you can. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, Matt, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thank you for calling. What's on your mind?
So the whole thing with Marsha Blackburn and the other senators wanting to freeze the assets that the $6 billion that they released, I see that as a double-edged sword. Because if we don't freeze it, it continues to allow Iran to fund Hamas to do what they're doing. If we do freeze it, one, it looks like we're siding with Israel and we're putting our nose into something that they think we don't need to put our nose into. And then two, it's going to make Iran say that we went back on our agreement with the hostages and releasing those funds. So either way we go, it's going to put us in the middle of it. What's your thought?
Well, the idea of being in the middle of it, I might disagree with the verbiage there, but why wouldn't we want to side with Israel?
I'm not saying that we wouldn't. I'm saying, but if we're going to do that and we're going to take that position, then we've got to get a stronger government that is going to lead us in the direction that we need to go. Because what we've got now and the debacle in Afghanistan, I mean, we're setting ourselves up for failure because they don't have the mindset to fight that war.
wait, they being
our current administration.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you meant they like somebody over in the Middle East. You mean they as in the Biden administration and the military
Correct.
complex that currently, the woke military complex. I would agree with that. Here's my hesitation in answering your question, and I think you hit the legitimacy of your question resides in the White House, right? Meaning, if Trump were president, I say that you point to Iran and you tell them to stay out of it, and you pull the $6 billion. Of course, you never would have given the $6 billion were Trump president of the United States. And you say, this is where we are on this. We're not going to intervene militarily, but we're going to do everything we can to squash you financially, and you just have to deal with it. And you don't make a move, because if you make a move, if you strike us, we're going to strike you 10 times as hard. That's from the Trump administration. I don't think the Biden administration has any ability to back any of that up. And I think the Middle East knows that, which is why I think Hamas did what they did. They know that America isn't going to back Israel up. And I think Iran now I'm talking about, who controls Hamas, they believe that this is worth it. That the weakening of the Israeli people and the demonstration of strength is worth it to harm, if not destroy, any future Saudi Arabian Israeli discussions. And that's the goal, is to harm the relationship that Israel has been developing with the other Arab nations in the region.
Right.
So, but yeah, I think your point's well made, that anything that we do to further involve ourselves in this conflict is being made by Joe Biden. And thank you for the call. I can't do anything with him over here. So I thank you for the call, John. I'm sorry, Bell, but my unit doesn't seem to be operating. Don't. I know what you're going to do.
It's a known issue.
You're going to put that, you're going to pull that out, and my unit's not operating. And then here I hear myself saying those words.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that's actually a good idea.
Shut your mouth. We have to go to break. You have things to do in the controlled area on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy. We talk temperatures in the 60s. We're talking about a cool down over the course of the weekend that looks pretty significant. I bet you'll be running that heater. If it's not running as it should, I encourage you to call Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. If your heater's not ready, call Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. Allow him to come out to your home. One of his certified techs can come out. They'll check everything out, make sure everything's running as it should. You know, sadly, there's a life cycle on your heater, on your air conditioner. I mean, it just is. And odds are that heater or that air conditioner is not going to outlive you. At least I hope not. That means you're going to have to replace it at some point. Trust Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling to do the work, to keep the invoice low. They never charge you overtime. They're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric, an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. And so when the time comes, one, they're never going to tell you that the time is now when it's not. They'll tell you how much life you got. They'll tell you the pros and cons. They'll tell you how much more energy efficient you can get with a brand new unit and how that can serve you better during the winter months. And then they'll go to work, keeping the invoice down, keeping the cost low, and replacing you with a brand new heating unit. Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. They've been serving Middle Tennessee for, certainly since as long as I've been here and long before that. EfficientHVAC.net, EfficientHVAC.net, or 615-784-4424, 784-4424. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you, 1238. Thank you for being with us on the Libertarian Lunch. We've got you till 3 o'clock this afternoon, handing off to Brian Wilson at that time. You can catch us on the radio. You can catch us on the stream. You can also catch us on Super Talk TV, where the F&M Bank chat is up and running, and you're invited to be a part of that. Just go over and type into the F&M Bank chat line, and we perhaps will see some of that chat right before our very eyes. That's different than the text feature, 615-737-9986, if you'd like to text or call regarding your thoughts on either. You know, I failed to mention it yesterday, and I had it on my list that it was Columbus Day, and I refer to it as Columbus Day, despite the fact that I have a good bit of Cherokee Indian in my heritage. My grandfather was Cherokee Indian. Now, when I say that, I don't want to get into the weeds too much on it. His father was full-blooded Cherokee Indian, and his mother was half Cherokee Indian. So
doesn't that make you enough Cherokee that you should be getting some of that sweet, sweet casino money?
I should. That's correct. But here's what I know. So on that side, that's my mother's side of the family. On my father's side of the family, my father was 25%. So it makes me roughly 1/4 Cherokee. I've done the math in the past. So between my father and my mother's side of the family, I'm roughly 1/4 Cherokee. Well, I did some exploration on that because there are scholarship opportunities when I was in college for those who can fortify their Cherokee heritage. I'm not a member of a tribe, by the way, but I looked into it, and my father's father, who was full-blooded Cherokee Indian. Oh, no, I'm sorry. My grandfather's father, my great-grandfather, was full-blooded Cherokee Indian, lived in South Carolina. His family came back from Oklahoma. They had been relocated. They lived on a reservation in Oklahoma. He bought land in South Carolina and claimed that he was half black, half white when he did so, although he's full-blooded Cherokee. That was easier. It was easier to get land as what he described as a mulatto at that time in the 1950s than it would have been to purchase land as a Cherokee Indian.
Have you ever done like the DNA testing thing?
I have not.
So you're not sure if you're related to Elizabeth Warren or not?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
I mean, she's like all that in a bag of chips when it comes to her Indian heritage, right? Pocahontas.
I thought so.
Mm-hmm. Even that said, I don't believe in Indigenous Peoples Day because there are really no indigenous peoples. There are just some that showed up earlier than others on American land. Columbus Day celebrates the beginning of Western civilization. Let me say it again. Columbus Day celebrates the beginning of Western civilization. And there's nothing wrong with Western civilization, despite what your liberal buddies might tell you. So we're not celebrating Columbus Day because on 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue and sailed and sailed and sailed and sailed and found America for me and you. We now know that there were plenty of people that came to the United States of America long before Columbus did. That is not what the celebration is about. Matt's Indian name could be Broken Arrow. I don't know what that means.
That's when you lose a nuclear weapon.
Oh. I actually have an Indian name. Well, two of them. One of them, and I never looked this up, an old Cherokee woman. I was in a play about William McIntosh, who was a half Scot, half Creek. And I played William McIntosh, Chief McIntosh. And this Cherokee woman went, and she came to see almost every production over the 2-week run. And she named me Ahala, which she says meant sweet potato. What? Why are you laughing at me? Ahala. She thought I was her little sweet potato. I thought it was nice.
You know, it sort of sounded cool until you translated it, and then it just made you sound like a little fat kid.
Well, it kind of was. Ahala. Ahala. It was so nice. Ahala. You're my Ahala. You're my... That's what she would say. You're my little Ahala. Well, thank you so much, ma'am. You're so sweet. What does that mean? It means sweet potato. You're lumpy and orange like a sweet potato. My other Indian name was given to me by another Cherokee friend of mine,
You could nickname Trump that.
I know. No, Trump. That's what we'll call Trump. 2024, we're calling Trump Ahala. Our little sweet potato. He does. Looks like a little sweet potato. My other Cherokee name was Titanka. Titanka.
Wasn't that in Dances with Wolves?
Water buffalo.
Oh, okay.
Dances with wolves. Water buffalo is what that means. Steve is here to talk about the Middle East, and I still can't make my phone work, so Bell will get on it. Steve, thank you for your call. How are you? Hey, Steve. Steve-O. Steve Areno. Steve Man. Steve Alicious. Steve going once. Twice. Sold! Goodbye, Steve. Thank you for playing. We appreciate your participation on the show today. Try to call back at 615-737-9986. Steve, that might be on our end because I think I was just told via text that there's some issues beyond my inability to field telephone calls on the phone line. So I don't know what the inabilities, I don't know how far that goes. But if you're trying to call in and you're not able to call in, we apologize. It's not us. It's our technology, I assure you. In the meantime, what to do? The latest atrocities are difficult to speak of. You have anti-Israel demonstrations around the world. Anti-Israel demonstrators who were confronted by counter-protesters, for example, in Cambridge, Massachusetts yesterday, with one man loudly screaming to individuals supporting Israel that they were Nazis and pigs. Literally. Now, imagine this for a moment, that someone is calling a group of Jewish people, or at very least people supporting the Jewish people, Nazis. In the meantime, we hear of atrocities, pro-Palestinian Hamas atrocities regarding the burning of the Jewish people to death, the slaughter of the Jewish people, to include the slaughter of babies. Some of the Republican presidential candidates are speaking out against the atrocities happening in Israel and the Israeli response. They're speaking to that, to include, for example, Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy, who put forward a 6-point plan outlining a strategy for U.S.-Israel relations. In a statement, Ramaswamy condemned violence perpetuated by Hamas terrorists, but also slammed Nikki Haley and others who've offered what he described as not a pragmatic path forward. The Hamas-led attacks on Israel were barbaric and cannot be condoned. We require a rational response that supports Israel while avoiding another U.S.-led disaster in the Middle East. I am disappointed and deeply concerned by the remarks of certain presidential candidates, including Nikki Haley, who have irresponsibly called the Hamas attack an attack on America and rapidly shouted, "Finish them," repeatedly without offering a pragmatic path forward. So, and you probably heard, and I know Hand and I were talking about it during the handoff, that Nikki Haley has now said, "Finish it." Well, I understand the hesitation to offer American military involvement. I share that hesitation. I do not believe that it is necessary for the United States military to become involved beyond this. Remember there was a movie that was played repeatedly on Cinemax back in the day. No, not that late at night. No, not that late at night. What was the one you said?
Night Ice 3 with Shannon Tweed, Gene Simmons' husband.
That's late. That was late. That was Skinemax. Yes. I'm talking about Cinemax.
Okay.
It was My Bodyguard. Remember that movie?
Yeah.
Like it was an early Matt Damon. Not Matt Damon. What's that?
Matt Dillon.
Matt Dillon.
Yeah.
Well, he played the bad guy.
Yep.
And this kid was being bullied, and so he hired a guy to be his bodyguard. And eventually, the bully hired a bodyguard to be his bodyguard, and the two bodyguards fought. And then eventually, the kid fought the Matt Dillon character and beat him up.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty good movie for its time.
You broke my nose. My nose.
I've seen it more than once.
America, I saw it plenty of times because it was on Cinemax, and that was the only thing to do. America's role in this, not to oversimplify it, is clear. We do not necessarily need to get involved in this conflict, but we need to allow Israel the ability to finish it once and for all. And in doing so, we need to play a heavy hand with regard to any other nation getting involved in this conflict whatsoever. In other words, we just need to stand by and say, let them settle it on their own. Hamas started it. Israel will finish it. We are not to get involved militarily outside of saying that we have Israel's back and everyone else needs to stay out of this. Well, what would happen, Murphy, if Iran got involved anyway? World War III? Let's try Steve again in the borough. I think we have him back. Steve, thank you for your patience, and thank you for calling back. I hope we got you this time around.
Thank you. You do, and I appreciate you getting me on. What I was going to ask you about, and I think I got my math right, we released, $6 billion and got 3 hostages, right?
I think we got 5, but...
5, okay, so a little over $1 billion apiece. My point is, that's an invitation for normal people to start taking hostages when you're talking about that much money. And I can't help but think this hostage grab has something to do with that money release. I'll stand by and listen to what you have to say.
Well, thank you, Steve, for the telephone call. Here's what I would say. I don't know that it's possible for a talk show host in Nashville, Tennessee, to adequately and properly get myself in the mindset of what the Iranian government might be thinking, what leadership with Hamas might be thinking, because I don't believe that they think like us. But through empirical data and through a life of experience discussing this on radio stations like Super Talk over the last 20 some odd years, I'm not saying that I'm the greatest expert on Israeli-Palestinian relations. I don't know that there are that many of them. But I know weakness is something that has consistently been exploited by believers in radical Islam, and more specifically by Hamas. And Hezbollah, really, but Hamas too. And I think that exchange demonstrated weakness on the part of the United States of America. And they know that. And they know we're not willing to do certain things. Now, we'll get more of your calls in here in a moment. Lindsay and Danny, you're coming up. We'll continue the discussion regarding Israel and Hamas, and the president is set to offer remarks at some point or another. I appreciate you listening, wherever you might be, whether you're listening right here in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee, throughout Middle Tennessee, online, on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, wherever you are across the Southeast, across America, and across the world. Thank you. On Super Talk, back in a moment.
Where am I? What's going to happen to me?
What's he doing? Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you, 12:58. Not enough time to jump to Lindsay or to Danny. You guys hang in there. Obviously, it's the story of the day. It's the story of the week. It's the international story for the latter portion of this year, one would expect. And in the meantime, there's this question.
But where are the university presidents who gave clear statements about all these other causes that mattered? Black Lives Matter. Stop AAPI hate. It matters. Stand for Ukraine. It matters. Why are they silent on dead Jews?
Why are they silent on dead Jews? Why are so many of these American people that speak out against every issue known to man silent on dead Jewish people? More in a moment on Super Talk.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. The war between Israel and the Islamic militant group Hamas intensifying following the weekend deadly attacks that left more than 900 dead in Israel, including 11 Americans. Israeli forces targeting hideouts in Hamas-controlled Gaza, at the same time trying to locate 150 people taken hostage from Israel and now being held in Gaza. ABC's James Longman is near the Israeli-Gaza border.
Israel now bombarding Gaza with a hail of rockets. The area, controlled by Hamas, is home to roughly 2 million Palestinians, one of the most densely populated areas in the world. Rescue workers digging for miracles. Is there anyone alive? This man shouts. From this pile of debris, 6-month-old Sama Al-Wadia pulled out, still alive.
Gaza ministry officials say 800 Palestinians have died since the Israeli airstrikes began. President Biden set to brief the nation at any moment. He earlier said the U.S. remains in lockstep with Israel against the terror group Hamas. Security here at home also a major concern. Airlines have suspended or limited flights to Israel, and law enforcement are scouring social media for any threats to Jewish communities in the U.S. It all comes as House Republicans are in turmoil over choosing a House Speaker, and all business is on hold in the House. ABC's Jay O'Brien has more.
The House floor is paralyzed. I talked to Mike McCall, the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
The eyes of the world are watching Congress as we don't have a speaker. It's a bit dysfunctional, and I think that projects weakness. We have to elect a speaker immediately.
There can be a speaker elected by the end of the week?
I think, given the events of late, it shows the dire necessity that we have to.
So House Republicans have said they want a speaker by the end of the week, and Chairman McCall telling me he believes because of that attack on Israel, that is more likely.
No winner in last night's Powerball drawing. The jackpot now climbing to more than $1.6 billion. You're listening to ABC News.
Believe it or not, there's an election going on right now, right in our midst, Franklin, Tennessee, and the guy on top of it, the podcast on top of it, is Mill Creek View and Steve Abramowitz. Steve Abramowitz is a conservative advocacy podcast. I appreciate Steve when he appears on our radio show, and I appreciate what he does in his podcast. It's a lot of politics, of course, especially nowadays in Franklin, discussing the alderman race, the mayor's race. But there's much, much more than just that. There's entertainment, sports, culture, authors on, artists on. It's frequently the number one show on politics on Podomatic. You can find it on Deezer, iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, and all of your favorite podcast sites. You can also find video on Rumble. Steve is the CEO and editor-in-chief of the Mill Creek View newspaper, which can be found at mcview.us. I go there on a daily basis. You should too. mcview.us. And they're covering this Franklin mayor's race and alderman's race like the morning dew. You should check that out if you live in that area. It's Mill Creek View and the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. It is the Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hour number 2 starts right now on all platforms. We're on 99.7 on the radio dial. We're on your internet stream, and we're on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. I should have expected this. The White House has been telling us for the last hour and a half that the President of the United States is set to make remarks on the Israeli-Hamas, war that's going on, started by Hamas. It will be finished by the Israeli military and their government and their people. Israel is currently pummeling Gaza with airstrikes, as they should. Hamas has reportedly killed over 1,000 people, raped and maimed others. Among those thousands include Americans and individuals all over the world. Tens of thousands of Israeli troops are massing on the Gaza border. The military is vowing swift escalation, and they say that this is not going to be, as the phrase goes, this phrase always used to, this is not a tit for tat. This is not a quid pro quo. This is not a we trade you that thing for this thing. You kill 1,000 of ours, we kill 1,000 of yours. This is, as Sean Connery said in the fabulous feature film Untouchables, the Chicago way. You send one of ours to the hospital, we send one of yours to the morgue. You bring a knife, we bring a gun. And that's the way that it should be. 4 days ago, there was peace. Hamas destroyed that. And now it's time for retaliation. Hamas, in the meantime, according to U.S. envoys in the region, latest, they're holding up to 150 hostages as we speak. They are vowing, as we told you yesterday, to kill every one of those hostages one by one if some of these airstrikes continue. The Israeli people have been through this before, and they know that they cannot bow before or bend to the will of terrorism. And that's exactly what this is. And they are not swayed by the pronouncement that the hostages will be killed. Israeli soldiers have shared details of unimaginable atrocity committed in the communities where dozens of victims, including about 40 babies, were massacred by Hamas terrorists. By the way, a lot of this is very sensitive. I should note that as we start the hour, I'm going to be relating some of this information to you. And some of you are probably sensitive to some of the information that we're relating. I'm going to play you some audio in just a moment that will break your heart. Israel's rescue service says 200 Israelis were found dead in one area. Reporters with 24 News toured the scene of devastation in a community of about 700 where soldiers worked to remove bodies of victims who had been murdered in their homes. Some soldiers said that they found babies with their heads cut off. Babies. Imagine a world where individuals who cut off the heads of babies are celebrated. Now imagine that you're living in it right now, today, Tuesday, October 10th, 2023. Imagine that. Imagine a world where there are groups of people that jump up and down in celebration of these atrocities and scream at the top of their lungs, "Gas the Jews." That happened in Sydney, Australia. Imagine a world where groups of supporters of Hamas gather in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and they scream to individuals who are standing in solidarity with the Israeli people. They scream Nazis and pigs. Since the beginning of the State of Israel in 1948, the Palestinians and other Arabs in that region have not wanted them there. Many of them have suggested that they were dispatched or displaced at the time that the Israelis settled there. Most of this displacement resulted in a non-desire on the part of the Arab culture to coexist with the people of Jewish faith. That is a fact. As a matter of fact, it should be noted that over the years, the state of Israel has extended an olive branch to the point that they allowed entire blocks and areas of that region of the world in the Gaza Strip and at one point in the West Bank to be relocated by the Arab people, by the Palestinian people. They allowed buildings that were constructed by the Israelis to be taken over by the Palestinians. And do you know what Bell, do you know? I mean, this is a curveball question for you, but I just want to, about 20 years ago or so, and I don't have the exact timing, they gave a portion of that region back over, the occupied zone, back over to the Arabs, to the Palestinians. They were trying to offer an olive branch in an attempt to proffer some sort of two-state solution. And you know what the Palestinians did to those buildings?
Tore them down?
They tore them down. You know why?
Because they were built by Jews?
Because they were built by Jews. Now, you tell me who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. I'm listening. I mentioned in Cambridge, Mass, yesterday, a man screaming that the pro-Israeli people were Nazis and pigs. In the meantime, we're awaiting a conversation, or we're awaiting an announcement by the President of the United States. And that's now been pulled down, and I don't know why it's been pulled down. We were told that we could expect comments soon by the president. We've not had any comments by him since Saturday regarding this issue publicly. And the American people and the rest of the world expect to see the President of the United States with regard. I mean, he pronounced himself to be pro-Israel, and then he left the scene, went to a barbecue over the weekend, was not seen yesterday, no public events yesterday. Today's Tuesday, so Saturday to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I mean, how long before we have a president willing to take a stand, with the ability to take a stand? 7793 writes in, and by the way, you can write us in on the super text line, 615-737-9986. You can also call. We're about to take some of your telephone calls on this matter, 615-737-9986. 7793 says, folks, this is not a football game where you can have a winner and a loser. This is a death match. That's true. But it's a death match only because of the leadership within Hamas, the organization of Hamas, which has declared that the only solution to this impasse is to destroy all of Israel and, by extension, all of the Jews, at least in that region. In the meantime, reporter Nicole Zedek was on the ground in Israel as she was reporting on some of the atrocities going on there. I want you to listen in.
David, it's hard to even explain exactly just the mass casualties that happened right here. In fact, the Israeli military says they still don't have a clear number, but I'm talking to some of the soldiers and they say what they've witnessed as they've been walking through these different houses, these different communities, babies, their heads cut off. That's what they said. Gunned down, families completely gunned down in their beds. You can see some of these soldiers right now comforting each other. Many of them reserves who jumped into action, leaving their own families behind as well, not knowing the sheer horror that they were about to come to. They say they've never experienced anything like this. This is nothing that anyone could have even imagined when you're walking through here. Baby cribs thrown to the side. Doors thrown wide open. Still some Israeli bodies still here because the fighting in this community just ended just recently. So many of these troops are still going house to house, door to door. It's taken them sometimes 30 minutes, 40 minutes because many of these houses are also still have grenades in them, booby traps. In fact, as we're trying to get closer to some of these scenes, we're being told, no, get back from some of these Israeli military because there are still grenades in the area. I want us to keep walking through, continue to kind of see the destruction that's happening.
It's important. The reason I play this minute and a half for you, and I've got another clip too, the reason that I play these things is not to belabor some of the atrocities that are going on, but it is important to watch and to document. It is important because what we have seen in the past, what I've experienced in the past, is slowly there are attempts to change the narrative. There are attempts to rewrite history. There are attempts to create moral equivalency to the horrors of Hamas against the response of Israel. And there is no moral equivalency. Yes, Israel will kill innocent civilians. Sadly, that is the case. It is a necessary evil. It is a necessary collateral damage to end the scourge of this evil on earth. And no, that doesn't mean that I believe America should intervene militarily. I do not believe that we need to, but we should prepare to support our friends. I tell you what, we're anticipating a conversation, or we're anticipating some remarks by Joe Biden. We're going to carry those. And in the past, when it has been a less serious matter, I've often chosen to, Mystery Science 3000 this thing and kind of speak along with the president of the United States and offer commentary. I'm going to try not to do that today. I'm going to try to let him get his remarks out and see if he takes some questions from the assembled press. In the meantime, let's get as many of these calls. I tell you what we'll do. Actually, what we should do before we go to calls is I should go ahead and take the break so that we don't have to interrupt the president with a timeout. So 16 after the hour, take a short timeout, be back, and hear remarks from the president of the United States next. Oh, friends, Kraft Body Scan is here, and they want to talk with you. Did you know that October is National Healthy Lung Month? It is. It is. My lungs thank me for quitting smoking almost 20 years ago. What about your heart and your lungs? Are you okay? They're obviously two of the most important organs in your body, and at Kraft Body Scan, they want to help you with those organs by offering you a $149 couples heart and lung scan at Kraft Body Scan during the month of October. I've done it, and it's easy. It's it's non-invasive. It takes about 5 minutes after your health consultation. It's a CT scan. It can detect even the slightest of irregularities. Get peace of mind with your heart and lungs and establish a baseline that can save your life, or at the very least, it can empower you to live the healthiest life possible. Visit Kraft Body Scan, spell Kraft with a C, craftbodyscan.com, or call 615-436-1000. 436-1000 for our friends right here in Nashville, Tennessee at Kraft Body Scan. maybe the president's already standing behind the podium. It just looks like an empty podium because, the president is an empty suit. Hey, it's Matt Murphy and the Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you for being out there. It's 1:21. We'll join you on the phones, as many of you have called in with your thoughts on the situation involving the Middle East. Israel is at war with Hamas after surprise attacks. Over 1,000 Israelis dead. That is a conservative estimate. And the Israelis are currently engaging in a bombing campaign in Gaza. They have to root the terrorist out of Gaza. And those who are innocent, put your hands up and pray if you're in Gaza. Sadly, innocent people will be killed, but that's at the feet of the Hamas, not at the feet of the Israeli military. My estimation, my opinion. Yours, 615-737-9986 if you'd like to be involved. Let's go to Lindsay, who's been holding on for some time out of Pleasant Shade. Lindsay, I've heard the name, but I'm very curious. Whereabouts is Pleasant Shade?
Well, it's in between Carthage and Red Boiling Springs.
I've taken a motorcycle trip through Carthage, so I know that.
Okay,
I know that
I'm north of there.
Yeah, I know that part of the world.
Holler.
What time? Yeah, I'll yell at you the next time I'm around.
You will. I'll barbecue.
Oh, we could pull a Joe Biden barbecue right out there in the Rose Garden.
We could, and we'll invite Chris Han and Tay Tay. Yeah, I offended him yesterday. Hey, I don't miss my morning Three Amigos. I offended.
Well, you're
Chris
shorting
Han
them.
yesterday.
Hold on now, Lindsay.
Way,
you're shorting
not
them.
the new kid. Not the new kid on the block anymore.
I know. I don't know how I feel
But
about
I
that.
loved you. I don't either. I've embraced you. I miss Uncle Phil, and nobody says Valentine. Uncle Phil Valentine. And I you know who made me listen to talk radio? Dave Ramsey, the money guy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I like Ramsey. I like Dave.
did.
I'd love to meet Dave one of these days. I hear he's out in Franklin.
Well, for Chris's credit, some old guy called him Matt, and he said that's a compliment.
Aw.
Oh.
I like Chris Hand a lot.
Yes,
He's been a great addition.
I do, and happy people are contagious.
Mm-hmm.
They really are,
Mm-hmm.
especially in these times.
I have to fight to be happy, Lindsay. I do. I admit it. I have to fight to keep my chin up. I am naturally a pessimist, and I have to force myself into optimistic thoughts about the future of the United States of America and the world.
Me too, darling. But listen, I offended Matt yesterday morning, and I want you to. And he should.
Wait,
thank
you mean Chris? You mean Chris?
Yes, Chris.
Yeah.
So I stirred the pot by accident. I wanted to tell him I missed him when he went to his sister's wedding. Whatever. I wanted to say this and that. You know, are you familiar with MASH?
Yes, I watched MASH begrudgingly as a child. I didn't want to watch it, but I was forced to watch it.
Oh, I heard you're not the MASH fan. Well, I'll say that.
You tell the story. No, you tell the story, and I'm gonna moan this theme song behind you. Okay.
Okay. So.
Okay,
Whitney Freeman,
Lindsay, I have to. Lindsay, I'm sorry. I have to suspend the pleasantries in the conversation because the president of the United States is approaching the podium. He flanked by Vice President Kamala Harris and Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State. Here's Joe Biden.
domestic threat that could emerge in connection with these horrific attacks. This is a moment for the United States to come together, to grieve with those who are mourning. Let's be real clear. There is no place for hate in America. Not against Jews, not against Muslims, not against anybody. We reject. What we reject is terrorism. We condemn the indiscriminate evil, just as we've always done. That's what America stands for. You know, just over 50 years ago, I was thinking about it this morning, talking to the Secretary of State, the Vice President in my office. Over 50 years ago, as a young senator, I visited Israel for the first time as a newly elected senator. And I had a long, long trip, a meeting with Golda Meir in her office just before the Yom Kippur War. And I guess she could see the consternation on my face as she described what was being faced. They were facing. We walked outside in that sort of hallway outside her office to have some photos. She looked at me all of a sudden and said, "Would you like to have a photograph?" And so I got up and followed her out. We were standing there silent, looking at the press. She could tell, I guess, I was concerned. She leaned over and whispered to me, she said, "Don't worry, Senator Biden. We have a secret rep in here in Israel." My word is what she said. We have no place else to go. We have no place else to go. For 75 years, Israel has stood as the ultimate guarantor of the security of Jewish people around the world, so that the atrocities of the past could never happen again.
I think we have the meat and potatoes of this. We're going to go ahead and take a break. Joe Biden now telling war stories about his time as senator in 1973, speaking with the then Prime Minister of Israel, Golda Meir. We stand with Israel. I appreciate the sentiments expressed by the President of the United States. I'll say that. I concur with them, and I hope he means them. I don't know if he means them, but I hope he does. He is currently walking off, taking no questions for no reason whatsoever. Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken were behind him for no purpose other than I expect to offer him some sort of, I don't know. I don't know why they're there. I don't. We'll reflect on that in a moment. Take your calls after this. It's 1:35 on Super Talk. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Defense Systems is a life safety and security consultation firm specializing in physical security consultation and active violence mitigation training. That's a lot of things. Defense Systems, simply put, helps you in your workplace, in your corporation, in your school, in your healthcare facility, in your law firm, in your manufacturing facility, in your corporate headquarters, in your entertainment venue. They help you be safer. That's it. Cumulus Nashville has utilized this training for our personnel, and it was where I first met Brink Fiddler as he exercised over the 2-day training period the reasons why the training is so necessary. He explained that it is a dangerous world that we live in. It's more than just checking a box for your employees. You'll truly be giving them life-changing skills, and I know I have them, to apply outside of the workplace. Active violence events are sadly more and more prevalent in a dangerously developing world. It is time to get trained to make sure you understand how to respond. I encourage you to go to defensesystems.com to find out more if you're a decision maker, or better yet, reach out today, 615-236-6484, 236-6484 for Defend Systems. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So the cryon on the bottom of hashtag never CNN, I watch CNN so you don't have to. It's an occupational hazard for me, and you're welcome. Biden not urging Netanyahu to exercise restraint. That's the cryon. I'll say it again. Biden not urging Netanyahu to exercise restraint. Well, why in the hell should he? What the hell kind of crawl is that? It's as if they wanted him to and he didn't. Why would he? Look, Joe Biden's bad. There's no question about it. The state of the world is bad. The state of the world is worse because of Joe Biden as president of the United States. I asked a question, and so many of you on the super text line answered it appropriately. What was Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken doing out there with Joe Biden? The only obvious answer is they're there in case he loses his ever-loving mind or loses the ability to read the teleprompter. He actually read the teleprompter for him fairly well. For him. I don't know that Joe Biden said any of the wrong things. He did want money for Israel doesn't need money from us. Joe Biden said that he would ask the Congress of the United States of America for more funding for Israel. I don't know that Israel needs money. They need the ability to kill the terrorists. That's it. And, you know, Joe Biden is hard to listen to. I'm not going to praise him for saying the obvious, but he did say the obvious, and that was If you're another country in the rest of the world and you're looking to take advantage of this, one word for you, don't. He said 2 words, but, you know. I mean, restraint in this case is that they didn't drop a tactical nuke somewhere in the middle of Gaza. So there's that.
You know, I say this without any facetiousness or sarcasm at all, but it's such a typical response for him to look at the situation and just go, hey, we can throw some money at it.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't need our money.
They don't need our money. They regularly receive arms and foreign aid and other material assistance from the United States of America. And that's a source of much debate in the United States of America during normal times, is whether or not we need to continue to give Israel funding. Bottom line is they're not looking for more money. They're not asking for more money. They don't need more money. They need space to move and breathe, to survive, to kill the bad people. America needs to be there to tell every other country that they are not to get involved in this fight. It is a fight between Israel and Hamas, and Israel will defeat them. Period. They don't need money. In the meantime, I would say this. It has put the speaker conversation certainly on the back burner, but that will become front burner conversation tomorrow. The expectation is this will speed up dramatically the House of Representatives selecting a new Speaker of the House. And the front runners have become Steve Scalise, Jim Jordan, and believe it or not, Kevin McCarthy himself, who has said that he will not run for Speaker, but it is up to the House Republican Conference as to whether or not they vote for him for Speaker. And if he's voted for, he will continue to serve. I wonder if you on the Super Text line have any thoughts about how you would vote or who you would prefer. Because that Speaker of the House will, as soon as they become seated, they will have to decide whether or not to bring up a vote on additional funding to Israel. It is fascinating how quickly Joe Biden and his presidency can react to Israel, but they don't seem to be able to react to East Palestine. No, not that Palestine. I'm talking about East Palestine, as in East Palestine, Ohio, where they have been waiting over 250 days for Joe Biden to show up.
The East Palestine in West.
Yes, the East Palestine in the West. I got you. Most of you responding so far have indicated a thumbs up for Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan, by the way, would be my selection as well. It's 1:45. Let's go to Tom next up in the borough to talk about the Middle East. Tom, thank you for your call. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Matt. A couple of things you need to go ahead and keep in mind. A lot of people go ahead, particularly Americans, are going to go ahead and look at this situation and say, oh, well, they're extremists. I've been there. All right. During the Gulf War, as Americans, they pushed us to the front while they were performing justice. Now, this is justice on their own people. I watched a sword come down and take off a hand. I watched the Watawa, i.e. the religious police, all pick up a rock and throw it at a woman, stoning her, and then a dump truck of rocks were dumped on her. Now, these were not extremists. These were Muslims practicing in their mind fundamental Islam. Okay, now take a bunch of, if you will, in our perception, extremists. Well, to them, they're a Republican Party. You know, they're the Democratic Party. You know, that's just a group of Muslims that got together, be it Hezbollah, be it Hamas. We can't look at it as Americans. Now, does Israel have a right? Absolutely. But when you look at the concessions that were made by Israel over the years, there was a lot of pressure. My thought process, you know, as much as I hate to go ahead and agree with her, yeah, blow them the heck off the face of the earth, because that's what they're going to do to the Israelis. That is their mentality. And we have to go ahead and think of it that way. You can't think of it as an American. You can't think of it as Western society, because they don't think like you.
It has almost become, Tom, a binary question, right? It's this or that. It is you stand in support of Israel and their right to exist, or you stand with the Palestinians and their right to destroy the Israeli people. And in their right to exist, the Israeli people must destroy Hamas. At very least, they must destroy Hamas, whose stated purpose as an organization is to kill all the Jews. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. Thank you, Tom, for the call and for the insight as someone who's been there, done that, and seen that. 147. Let's slip one more in here. Keith, I believe, is next in Thompson Station. Keith, thank you for your call. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Hey, thank you very well. I got so many thoughts about this, but I guess the one at the top of my mind that I'm personally really struggling with, and your previous caller, Tom, I think, just now stated it pretty well, and even, gosh, my wife even did last night. It's like, why don't we blow them all up, you know? And I'm so pro-Israel and everything over the years, but golly, it's 2.3 million people in a 25-mile strip that's an open-air prison, and I get why they're there, but it's genocide is what we're talking about. We're trying to justify genocide, not just an overreaction where there's collateral damage. This is way beyond collateral damage. They're wanting to go in there and wipe the place out, or at least some people are, and that may be what they're planning to do. I don't know. What I read today is that they have, from the Gaza Strip, a gate, a portal of entry into Egypt at a place called Rafah, and it's closed. Israel's not allowing anybody through there. So their only way of escape, and they've told them, they've warned the Palestinians, leave your homes, we're coming in.
Well, Well, let me jump in here for a couple of points. I think the Egyptians, I mean, I'd need to look this up, but I think I read where the Egyptians were requested that the gate remain closed for now.
That may be, and that's another thing I want to ask you. Do you remember, and I haven't paid a lot of attention to the Middle East for years because it's just been percolating forever, but it seems like in my ancient memory, I remember that, you know, everybody's always been wondering, where can these Palestinians go? Where can they go? And even from the very beginning when these places were gathered, the West Bank, you know, Gaza, all that stuff, none of the other Arab countries who spoke so loudly and vociferously in support of them and gave them money would allow them to come into their country. And so I wonder if Egypt or any other country was given the option by Israel. I'm not saying it would come to this, but it's almost unspoken. We want these people out of here. We're done with them. And we're either going to kill them all or one of you guys take them. I wonder if any of those Arabs that are willing to go to war would take them.
I think it's permissible for the Palestinians to travel to a number of Arab countries in the Middle East. And I think Egypt's one of them.
But in mass, though? In mass, though?
Well, I mean,
2 million of them?
I mean, individually, I mean, if you go collectively, I mean, I would think that at some point these countries would get overwhelmed and they would shut their borders down if that's
obviously, if the Rio Grande was anywhere nearby, it'd be just fine for them to cross that. But we're not there. We can't do that for them.
Right. But it's a good question. So the question then becomes, and by the way, when you say, you know, blow them up, or when I say blow them up, or when Nikki Haley says finish them, I don't know what Nikki Haley means. I don't know what you mean. I mean militant Hamas. I don't mean Palestinian.
Yeah, I know. And I know they're hiding behind civilians. I know all that. I mean, I get that. But we're talking about, I know there are people talking about tactical nukes. And I'm not joking about it either.
Well, yeah, I get that. That's ridiculous. At some
it's
point.
It's called the Samson option. Have you heard of the Samson option?
At some point, Keith, here's what I would say. The Israeli government, as they attempt to sweep an area that is the most tightly packed area really in the Middle East. I don't know of any other area that is more compressed in terms of numbers of people per square mile than Gaza.
Right.
There might be one, but I don't know of it. Well, it is an incredibly dangerous proposition to commit to that type of urban warfare. So at some point, I would think the Israeli government would need to grant the opportunity for quote-unquote peaceful Palestinians to get the hell out of there. And that would involve, I would think, some type of relationship or agreement with Egypt or some type of relationship or agreement with some of the other countries border. Jordan it is potentially a possibility. Lebanon is potentially a possibility, I would assume. But
No, there are no vacancy there. Hezbollah's got that filled up.
Well, see, you're right. I mean, yeah, and even as I said that, I recognize that while they allow for the Palestinians to come into the country, I don't think they would allow for that in mass. So these are all good questions, but the genesis of your comment is correct, that I do not believe that we should be considering mass destruction of civilian territory when you will sweep up Palestinians who want no part of this conflict in the process of killing those who are trying to kill you. You have to do it a little more tactically. Will that involve the death of innocents? Yes. Or is that at the hands of the Israelis? Directly, yes, but indirectly it's at the hands of Hamas. And they don't care, because they will, every innocent civilian that is killed on that front, Palestinian, they will use that as a propaganda tool against the Israeli people, instead of doing the right thing, and that is recognizing that it was your actions that directly led to their deaths. It's 1:53, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Let's talk for a moment about your weight. Now, I understand that's a personal issue, and I understand that maybe it's a sensitive one for you, especially if you felt yourself growing over the years and you don't know a solution to stop it. Well, PhD Weight Loss has helped me lose almost 36 pounds thus far. And, you know, what I want to talk to you about today are the hiccups in the road, because it is just not true to suggest that as you live your life, there will not be hiccups in your weight loss journey. Well, Dr. Ashley Lucas understands that. PhD Weight Loss understands that. My counselor, my consultant, my nutrition, my dietitian, Rachel, understands that. And so they understand if you call them and tell them that you've had a less successful week or had a more successful week, they want to get you on track. They want to keep you on track toward your journey. It's a journey together toward your weight loss goals. So if you're sick and tired of being big and tired, if you weigh 50 or 60 or 80 pounds more than you want to weigh, or even more than that, let's start this journey with PhD Weight Loss. By the way, most men lose between 3 and 5 pounds a week. Most women lose between 2 and 3 pounds a week. And the PhD guarantee is simple. PhD will guarantee that you get within 5 pounds of your target weight by the end of your program, or they will continue to coach you for free until you do. Can't ask for more than that. Go to myphdweightloss.com. That's myphdweightloss.com.
2 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 73 degrees on Music Row. Complete forecast just a few minutes away. Here's Michelle Franzen bringing more info on the crisis in Israel.
President Biden addressing the nation and pledging unwavering support for Israel 4 days after the Islamic group Hamas carried out a deadly multi-pronged attack across Israel. The president denouncing those attacks and the killings of Jews.
This is an act of sheer evil. More than 1,000 civilians slaughtered, not just killed, slaughtered in Israel. Among them, at least 14 American citizens killed.
More than 800 Palestinians also killed in the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip, where Israeli forces have carried out hundreds of airstrikes in the past few days. Hamas militants have also taken 150 people from Israel hostage and are holding them in Gaza. The U.S. working to find out more about Americans still missing in Israel.
There's still so many families desperately waiting to hear the fate of their loved ones, not knowing if they're alive or dead or hostages.
Israel has called up more than 300,000 reservists.
Two U.S. officials confirmed that the United States is discussing whether a second U.S. aircraft carrier should be deployed to the eastern Mediterranean because of the Israel-Hamas crisis. And here in Tennessee, police need, quote, extra eyes to help identify a suspect in a fatal crash.
Fox 17 says the Clarksville Police Department hopes you take a look at newly released video footage on their Facebook page. Investigators say it shows moments right before 19-year-old Joseph Cook was killed on Wilma Rudolph Boulevard the night of August 18th. He was on a motorcycle. The video shows a white SUV, which police says is an early 2000s model, Chevy Suburban or GMC Yukon with chrome rims and white running boards. If you know who owns this vehicle or who was driving it, you're asked to call Clarksville Police. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Friends, is pain limiting you from doing day-to-day activities? If so, the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief, they want you. Hey, it's Matt Murphy, and we're looking for 5 people who suffer from chronic back, neck, or shoulder pain and want to experience significant relief in the next 30 days without pills and without surgery. You know me and the Dr. Gill Center. I've been a patient for many, many years, and they've helped relieve my pain in my lower back, eliminated my pain in my neck. I had some constant pain in my neck that I thought was stress-related. It was actually a compression in my upper body. I didn't know about it. Dr. Wendy identified it. We solved that problem, and I've not had that issue since. It's a limited time for the first 5 callers to get a very special at the Dr. Gill Center, so I want you to call right now. Mention Pain Relief and Matt Murphy to qualify for the discount. 615-882-4838. 615-882-4838. It's the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief, located in Franklin. An easy drive anywhere within the sound of my voice. And what is pain relief worth to you? Make a call today and schedule that appointment with the Dr. Gill Center. All right, it's just past 2 o'clock. Good afternoon. Welcome back. Matt Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I appreciate those of you joining us. If you're just joining us, thank you. You missed 2 hours, 2 good ones, if I do say so myself, as we continue on this Tuesday edition. We're here till right around 3 o'clock, thereabouts. We'll hand off to The Drive with Brian Wilson at that time. It's live and it's local. It's information-fueled and opinion-driven News Talk Radio on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can also find us on the TV side of things. That is Super Talk TV, located YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. You look up Super Talk TV, you'll find us. Episode 431 broadcasting there as well. And a lot of you on the F&M Bank chat line on the TV side of things. And a hello if you happen to be watching on television. We appreciate you. The death toll, according to Israel, is now at least 1,000 and potentially many, many more, with about 4,000 injured. The death toll in the state of Israel includes individuals from all over the world. I'm going to give you a rundown of some of the countries that have announced that at least one of their countrymen have been killed by Hamas in Israel. Argentina says that at least 7 Argentinians are dead, many others missing. Brazil, at least 3 Brazilian nationals dead. Great Britain, Cambodia, Canada, Chile, Colombia, France, Germany, Ireland, Mexico, Nepal, Peru, Philippines, Thailand, and of course, the United States of America. Right now, the White House is speaking. Jake Sullivan is one of the senior policy advisors regarding foreign policy. He's not a very good advisor. He's not very good on foreign policy, but he is in that capacity under Joe Biden. He is currently speaking at the White House, taking some questions from reporters, something that Joe Biden is unable to do. Let's jip this joint in progress.
To the NATO Defense Ministerial about those requests. Secretary Austin is following up on that. And as I said in my opening comments, you can expect to see American planes flying into Israel to deliver military capabilities to support Israel. Yeah.
Just to follow up on Iron Dome, how effective has it been in deterring the attacks? And I know you mentioned this a bit in terms of the interceptors, but has Israel asked for interceptors on an ongoing basis in light of the situation?
You ask how effective it has been in deterring. I can't say that it is deterred, obviously, because a huge number of rockets have fired, but it has been effective, as it typically is, in taking a lot of those rockets out of the sky and saving countless lives by doing so. Now, of course, some rockets have gotten through to tragic cost, and that has been the pattern we have seen in previous conflicts as well. Now, Israel will have an ongoing need for interceptors, because an air defense system is only as good as your ability to continue to put interceptors in that can take out the rockets that are coming to kill civilians and rain down terror on cities. And we are committed to making sure that we are working with Israel to produce and supply the requisite number of Iron Dome interceptors so that they can keep those systems going on an indefinite basis going forward, because we cannot say how long this will be going on. Yeah.
Thank you. Jake, while you're supporting Israel militarily and rightly denounce this horrific and heinous act against Israeli civilians, how can you make sure that Israel goes after Hamas and its infrastructure in Gaza, not 2 million Palestinians who are trapped with no water, with no electricity, with no medical supply? The UN schools are overflown now. The number of dead is reaching 850 so far, including 6 members of one family of the former ambassador to Washington. How can you make sure that this is not revenge, but actually going after Hamas, who committed this horrible crime?
Well, as the president said today, the difference between countries like the United States and Israel is that we do not deliberately target civilians. We are strongest when we are committed to the rule of law, and we work to make sure that all military operations are conducted consistent with the rule of law and the law of war. That is something that
it's a weak answer to a pro-Palestinian question.
Discussed, not just in this context, but in previous contexts as well. That is something the United States has always stood for and always will continue.
We're sad about that, but it can't be helped.
Sorry.
That's what you say.
Confirm that the Egyptian intelligence has passed information to the Israelis that the attack is imminent or some attack is going to happen?
I cannot confirm that. Yeah.
Prime Minister Netanyahu tweeted on Saturday telling residents of Gaza to leave now because we will operate forcefully everywhere. Where is the idea of where people in Gaza will go?
This is something also that we have been discussing with our counterparts in Israel and with our counterparts in Egypt. And without getting into the specifics of safe passage for civilians and so forth, I will say it's something that the U.S. government is seized with in supporting how we do that operationally. But the details of that are something that are being discussed among the operational agencies, and I don't want to share too much.
All right, there's a couple of minutes with Jake Sullivan. He is speaking for the Biden White House. He's senior policy advisor, national security advisor to the President of the United States. Not that he's very good at his job. You heard and I described it as a pro-Palestinian question. I suppose it's a legitimate question. The suggestion is there are Palestinian people that are in that region of the world, in Gaza, that want nothing to do with Hamas, and those people are experiencing water loss and power loss. Those people are experiencing the horrors of war. I would suggest that war has been brought to them, not the other way around. Secondarily, there are a lot of Palestinians that are in it for the cause. They're not willing to become a part of Hamas, but they are supportive, either passively or actively supportive in their own ways in that community. And so one has to impose upon those individuals the willingness to go in door to door and make sure that you're not offering some sort of level of support for Hamas, but also the necessity for you to eliminate any and all support for Hamas in order to get back to a peaceful coexistence in the Middle East, if that's your desire to peacefully coexist in the Middle East. And I don't think it's the desire of many of the Palestinians that find themselves in Gaza, but maybe some. So you have to separate the wheat from the chaff there somehow. Secondarily, I appreciate the question regarding the resettlement efforts. And this is where America should operate. I don't know for the life of me why we think everything can be solved by money and guns on our part. To my knowledge, the Israelis have enough weapons. They have enough arms. And I would think they have enough money. What they need is support on our part to insist that other countries work to neutralize the unnecessary collateral damage that will come by the necessary house-to-house combat that has to happen to eliminate Hamas from the face of the earth. That is not to say that we should eliminate the Palestinians from the face of the earth. That's not the point. Although some people will argue with me that the Palestinians, all of them, want to see the destruction of Israel. And I understand why you feel that way. But just as it is wrong to collectively lump, every person of a particular political stripe into a category. I mean, I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna do that. But I think it's unfair to do that. It would be unfair not to jump back on the phones and talk with David, who is in the borough. David, thanks for calling the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. How you doing, Matt?
I'm well, thank you.
I agree with what you just said there. You can't lump everybody in one category. But you got the people that have done the unthinkable over there. They've killed people simply because of their race. They have slaughtered children, babies, simply because of their race. They are not human to me in any way, shape, or form, and they need to be eradicated from this earth. Now,
Can I say something real quick? Can I say something real quick? And I want to let you finish, but you've inspired me real quick. There's been a lot of discussion about the description of Hamas as human animals. And a lot of people on social media, they've got their panties in a knot because Hamas has been. Well, how would we describe groups of people that are willing to slaughter babies? I don't know how else to describe them. How would you describe individuals that are willing to, as it was described, there was a festival going on, a peace festival that was going on in Israel. They went into the peace festival, people fled, and they have these concrete bunkers or shelters that are designed to protect people from some of the missiles that come into Israel from time to time when the Iron Dome fails. And there were groups of people, like 10, 20, 30 people that went into one of these shelters. And when this particular shelter was discovered, all of them were dead. All of them were found to be cowering in the corners. The floor was caked in blood. They were all slaughtered by Hamas. And I don't know how else you would describe them but as animals. And anyway, I'm sorry, but you inspired me to speak to that point. Go ahead, David.
That's okay. That's exactly what they are. They're animals. The stuff like that happened back in the barbarian days. Decapitating people. I mean, really, something else that really disturbed me is watching the news last night. You had people supporting Hamas here in the United States. They were burning American flags. They said that them people and they were also burning the Jewish flag. They said the people got what they deserved. I don't care what anybody has done. Those babies, those children, they didn't deserve that. They didn't deserve that whatsoever. And if those people stand over here in the United States, they may have come over here and gotten some rights, but they do not have the right to stay here, in my opinion. They need to be gathered up, the ones that are backing them, and taken back over there and left there. And if you're from another country and you come over here because you want what we have, but then you turn around and you burn our flag and death to America.
Well, and you've got
if our country lets them stay. No, I'm talking about if they're from another country, not BLM, not people that is born here. They have somewhat of a national right to do that. I don't think anyone really should have the right to burn the American flag. It should be illegal, against the law. But to come from another country and do it, they need to be shipped out. Because if they support it, they're just as much of a monster as the ones that did it. And how long will it be before there's enough of them to maybe try that here?
David, great call. Thank you for making it. I appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to interrupt it for a moment to talk about this concept of animals and savagery. Yes, in Australia, at the Sydney Opera House, there were groups of pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas protesters screaming, "Gas the Jews, kill the Jews." That happened in the United States of America. You have organizations around the United States of America praising the Palestinians and praising the Hamas terrorist organization, including BLM. I'm 50. When I became aware of the world around me and aware of our world history, I'm between beginning around 12, 13, 14, you don't really have a full comprehension. You don't know you're butting a hole in the ground before then, but you start to develop a comprehension of the world before you. And when I was 13 years old, it was about 1986. That was roughly 40 or so years prior since the end of World War II. And as you begin learning more and more about World War II, you begin learning about the atrocities of the Holocaust and the desire on the part of Adolf Hitler to eliminate the Jews from the face of the earth. The final solution, which was implemented, in some areas earlier, but certainly by 1944, Hitler had fully implemented the final solution to be executed literally and figuratively at concentration camps around that country and beyond. And when the liberation of Germany occurred, and generals like General Montgomery in Great Britain and General Eisenhower, obviously, and General Patton and others discovered through their divisions and through their troops the existence of these concentration camps, and then toured the concentration camps and saw the atrocities and began to fully comprehend and understood what was going on. Eisenhower himself, it is said, specifically demanded that the American and British film crews be allowed in and film what was going on. And we are told that Eisenhower insisted upon it, not because he wanted to glorify the disgusting, vile, evil nature of what he was witnessing, but because he understood and said, people will not believe us if we tell them. People will not believe that there are other human beings that are willing to either idly stand by and do nothing or actively participate in the death of millions of other fellow human beings like what we are witnessing. He understood how important it was to document it. And one of the reasons that I think it's important to talk about the savagery of these disgusting SOBs is for that very reason. Because in real time now, you have people that are trying to soft pedal or out and out deny that some of this is going on. I do not suggest that there is a time today that America should engage militarily. But we should not shirk our duty if we are called at some point in the future to deny the ability of radical Islam to begin the destruction of the Jews yet again. History repeats itself. And sadly, there are a lot of people around the globe that don't seem to remember our history that happened a mere 80 some odd years ago. And what did we say? But never again. What did we say? But we must give these people a place to live where they can be in safety amongst themselves without fear that organizations, groups, or other religious faiths, radicalized as they may be, would be allowed to destroy them. That's why the state of Israel exists, people. There's no nipping around the edges on who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. I keep going back to that. If you are mistaken for 1 second, I understand dealing with the subtle nuance of how we should handle the situation and whether or not this is America's fight, and whether or not we should send money, and whether or not we should send arms, whether all of those things are all well and good. But make no mistake that we will be judged. Maybe not on this life, but certainly in the next. And when I stand before my maker, I'm not willing to say, well, you know, wasn't really my problem. While his people get slaughtered. I'm out of the pulpit. Back in a moment on Super Talk. Tennessee Men's Clinic wants to see you. Gentlemen, are you feeling low energy, low motivation, low drive? Yeah, I know that this can result in some, dare I say, lack of activity in the bedroom. Okay, I said it. There. I said it, and I'm done with it, because that matters too. And men, if you felt any of these symptoms in your life, don't just chalk it up to middle age and don't say goodbye to that aspect of your life. It's time to get with the Tennessee Men's Clinic. 2 convenient locations. One is in Franklin and Cool Springs. The other in Midtown Nashville. They've been around for a long time now. That Franklin location opened for just about a year now. And for less than $100, you can get a complete examination. They can go through all of your numbers that you probably aren't aware of, and then they can get to the bottom of why you're not feeling it, why you feel maybe tired and grumpy, or have noticed weight gain or a loss of muscle mass. Or maybe it is that you've seen a decrease in your sex drive. Well, if that's the case, let's call the Tennessee Men's Clinic and see if we can get you back up to speed again. 615-208-9090, 615-208-9090, or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com.
President Biden says today that the United States, quote, stands with Israel. Some crime in Tennessee, plus a popular social media app trying to help their users manage their mental health. That and more. 2:30 Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Yes, that's right around the corner. And after the news, I'm going to lighten the load. I'm going to take a turn away from the politics of the day and ask some advice questions from my cohorts, Mac Maury and Bel Kay.
Ooh, I'm excited.
We're going to do that right after the,
Yeah.
a little something happened, an internal something that happened. You know, we're all family.
Of course.
We're all family. And I had a bit of a quandary last night as I was filling out a survey, a questionnaire, and I need a little help with this. So we'll do that after the bottom of the hour. Let me get to Tony in Westmoreland. Considering that, I want to get to him because he's been holding for a minute, and then we'll get to the bottom of the hour news. Tony, a limited amount of time, but I wanted to hand it to you, sir. You're on the table. Go right ahead.
Thank you. My question is, let's unlock Israel's hands and let them do what they have to do. Does that make sense?
No, it does, and it's right where I'm at on this. I do not believe that the United States needs to, nor are we at a point at the necessity for intervention militarily. Thank you, Tony, for the call. I do believe that the United States needs to be there in partnership with the state of Israel to make sure that other Arab nations in the Middle East do not get involved in this, because naturally there will be some that suggest that Israel's response will be too big, that it will not be appropriate, that it will not be a reasonable response to the actions taken against them. I don't know how you could be unreasonable based on what has happened to the Israeli people and the rest of the world by extension. But I do believe America needs to be there, stand in support. We don't need to intervene militarily, and I don't know that they need money. Just this morning on Fox and Friends, there was an Israeli, a muckety-muck in the Israeli ranks that said, we just need support. We need American support. We need you to stand with us and say, we got your back. We don't need anything else. And I think I hear that repeatedly from that nation and repeatedly from its people. 615-737-9986. We'll turn our attention to some internal matters. I need your assistance, and we'll tell you why in just a moment. It's news time on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.232, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 76 degrees, another beautiful day in Nashville. This warmer weather will stay here for the next few days, and then come this weekend, we'll have some of that cooler weather return. Full weather forecast in 2 minutes. President Biden told the American people the U.S. stands with Israel as the IDF calls up thousands and thousands of reservists. Mary Bruce breaks down what today's address means.
What really stood out to me here is that this wasn't just a forceful condemnation from the president. He was detailing in painful detail the atrocities and the horror that we have seen unfolding. The president speaking not just as a president, but as an American, as a human being who, like all of us, is outraged by what he is seeing. All of this to underscore why he said so bluntly that America stands with Israel.
The president said they now know for sure that Americans are being held hostage by Hamas. Crime in Tennessee. A man was found dead in Cookeville yesterday inside of a car with what looked to be a gunshot wound. It happened when officials responded to a call of a car crash. They found 55-year-old Rodney Morgan inside of that vehicle dead. Officials now looking for any information that anyone may have. And a popular social media app now helping users manage their mental health. Derek Dennis reports.
With 34 million videos posted to TikTok daily, the app is offering users new tools when they search for videos using keywords like anxiety, depression, or trauma. It's adding resources, including links to the National Institutes of Health and the Cleveland Clinic. The app will also help users limit their screen time with on-screen suggestions to take a break or reminders to go to sleep. And it's also touting the silent walking trend, the concept of walking without headphones or other electronic devices to encourage clear thinking as a tool to improve mental health.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
You know, we get a lot of questions. Well, not a lot, but occasionally I get a question about USS, United Structural Systems. Questions like, what exactly goes into waterproofing your basement or your crawl space? What does USS do that sets them apart with regard to waterproofing or sets them apart with regard to making sure your foundation is proper in your home? Well, there are many, many answers on the USSTN.com website. That's USS, United Structural Systems, TN, that stands for Tennessee. but they serve Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, and Northern Alabama. You know, waterproofing services like interior drains, exterior drains, crawl space waterproofing, crawl space encapsulation and dehumidification, all of those things are a part of the possibilities that exist in waterproofing your home to make sure you stop smelling that musty, moldy smell. The encapsulation is pretty new technology, and it's pretty incredible what they're able to do at USS. When it comes to foundation repair, it's as simple as this. If your foundation settles, if you see cracking or stair steps or whatever it might be on your walls, maybe you've got doors sticking and whatnot, and you need to correct that. It's not going to correct itself. USS can help in that regard, too. Don't whistle past the graveyard. Call USS. They've served over 25,000 residential customers. Satisfaction guaranteed since 1994, almost 30 years in the business. 615-488-7855. That's 488-7855 for USS online, USSTN.com. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and I want to talk to you about the YourHealthPlanMan.com website. If you pay for your own health insurance coverage, if you're looking for coverage, do not go online looking for quotes. You'll get endless calls from call centers, and they will not stop. Instead, call the Your Health Plan Man team of experts. With over 25 years combined experience, they can provide sound advice for your health insurance needs. Their Freedom of Choice plan lets you pick your doctors, and it's 30 to 60% lower in cost than Obamacare. The monthly premiums are independent of your income, so there will be no surprise tax bills. If you pay for your own health insurance, you're uninsured, you're on COBRA, or if your employer coverage is just too expensive, call them at 855-4-PLAN-MAN, 855-4-PLAN-MAN, or go to YourHealthPlanMan.com. That's YourHealthPlanMan.com. They'll design a plan that is managed by you, not by the government. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you. Yes, indeed. Decent show, if I do say so myself. Some heavy topics. We need to lighten the mood and lighten the load, and I need your assistance here because I think I've made a a horrible mistake. We'll talk with Brian Wilson. That's no mistake. We love conversing with Brian about what's going on the drive. That's happening in about 10 or so minutes. The drive coming up in about 20 or so minutes. Obviously, the topic of discussion has been primarily Israeli relations with the United States of America and their reaction to the brutal, vicious, vile, evil attacks against them. We also talked about Columbus Day yesterday. I mentioned the speaker. By the way, the results of the speaker vote, y'all want to guess? Mac Murray's going to help me with this next segment, as will Belkay. Y'all want to guess real quick? I presented 3 names. Scalise, Jordan, McCarthy.
Jim Jordan in a landslide.
Mac Murray?
McCarthy.
Jim Jordan in the landslide. Although there are some saying that about 60 to 80 Republicans are going to dig in and stick with McCarthy as long as possible. And I'm wondering if this Israeli situation doesn't change that dynamic a little bit. But there are several McCarthy folk in the House of Representatives that are like, we got votes too. And if you 20 or so, I mean, and I'm not taking sides, but they're saying if you 20 or so want to be jerks, well, we can be jerks too.
We can do that too.
We can do that too. And we're stronger in numbers. So,
did they have to pass a new rules package when they changed the speaker?
I mean, I don't know that they have to, but I would think. Let me put it this way: if I'm Jim Jordan or I'm Steve Scalise, and I see what Matt Gaetz just did, I'm not going in there and giving him the singular ability to call a vote of no confidence for me. To vote for a change, to vacate the chair. I'm not doing that. So you're going to have to change the rules.
Gotcha.
In order to get me a speaker. I don't know if that's what they're doing. So here's a little inside baseball. So you guys know that, you know the hosts, you know the producers, you know the various shows on Supertalk 99.7 WTN. And some guys have been around for a while. You know, Dan Mandis has been here almost a decade now. And I've been here for a couple of years. Chris Hand is the new guy on the block nowadays. Brian Wilson, I think, is approaching, if not exceeded 7 years in Nashville, Tennessee. But we're always trying to get to know you better, the listening audience better. And similarly, our sales team, they go out every day and they talk about the radio station to various businesses. I mean, it's a 3-legged stool, what we do here, right? It is the listening audience. That's you. It's the team here, Mac Maury, Belkay, myself, and others. And it's the advertisers that support what we do on a daily basis. And we appreciate the fact that you guys support them. So occasionally we are asked to provide some additional information about ourselves by the management over on the sales side of things. You know, you got programming and sales and promotions in radio. So, guys, you might not know, but I don't know if you guys got the bio questionnaire. Did you get a bio questionnaire?
We're not important enough for bios.
Yeah.
So we received, the hosts received from our sales management, Dave Elliott. You guys know Dave.
Oh, yeah, Dave. Great guy.
Great guy.
Great guy.
Oh, man.
Sales manager.
This poor guy, poor fella, he needs more money because all of his money's going to Georgia Tech right now. He's got a kid at Georgia Tech.
Ooh.
He's you should have seen him after that Miami win. Woo. Anyway, so he sends us a questionnaire, and I got it, and I filled it out last night. And, Belle, you've got some of the questions, and I think I did this wrong, and I need to find out from the audience if you guys agree with me. So,
Mac, what do you think the first question was?
How long you been in radio?
That's pretty close.
It's actually, what is your name, and would you provide a picture so we know what you look like?
That's not true.
No, it was what was your first job in the radio industry?
Okay, decent,
right, that's
normal.
Good. That's good. So there's like 9 or 10 questions here. There's 11 actually, and I went and I won't tell you my answer to all of them, but I answered them. I played it straight, and I think I made a horrible mistake. I think I could have done this better. And I want to try to repair it on the radio today. So, like the first question, what was your first job in the radio industry? My answer was I nailed down a part-time job at a local radio station in my hometown of Thompson, Georgia at the age of 15. WTWA, 1240 AM, your favorite easy listening hits from the 40s to the 80s. There was also another station there, the 3,000-watt country radio station, WTHO, your better country FM. Loved the experience and learned how much I wanted this to be my career path. That's the answer. That's the answer. Like, give me another one of the questions, Belle, and I'll tell you what my actual answer was to Dave.
Will you agree to also sell time for us?
That's not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Why do I let him participate in these conversations? I don't know.
What's the most inspiring part of your job?
What is the most inspiring part of your job? Isn't that a great question? Isn't that a great question?
So original.
Oh, I know the answer.
What do you think the answer is?
I know what the answer should be.
What should the answer be, Mac?
The listeners.
Kind of.
That's pretty good.
Kind of.
Helping other people.
That's good. No,
Whether
I like
it's a direct contact with a listener who needs assistance or discussing issues that inspire and motivate our community, there's no comparison to the potential impact that we can make in the lives of people in Tennessee and beyond. That was my answer.
So official.
Heartfelt, wasn't it?
Very.
Was good. I felt good about it until I read it to my wife, and she rolled her eyes.
Good for her.
She did. All right, give me one more.
Where are we at here?
Just any one of them.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
See, these are the types of questions we're dealing with.
Ugh.
So you see how I'm feeling about this? What's the best advice you've ever been given?
To love yourself like you. Yeah, it's just like, okay.
Whoa. Well, that actually, he's being sarcastic and he got close.
It was actually pretty close. No way. So my official be good, Murphy, you've only been in this job for 2 years answer was be true to yourself on air and off.
Yes.
My mentor, Don Markwell, a longtime broadcaster in Montgomery, Alabama, told me years ago there are 1,000 people who want to be Rush Limbaugh, but there's only one person who is Matt Murphy. Stand out from the herd by being who you are. So these questions go on and on. I want you to listen to these 11. So I realized after consultation with my wife, whom I'm going to blame for all of this, that I had answered these questions incorrectly. And I want to go over how I should have answered these questions. So here's what we're going to do.
Yes.
And every answer, well, you'll see, okay? Every answer is truthful. This is the true Matt Murphy answer to these questions.
Yes.
You ready? Because I filled my page with Bravo Sierra. A lot of it.
Oh, yeah.
Fluff.
Oh, man. It's bad. It gets worse from what you heard.
Oh, God.
But in the interest of time, Belle, I want you to ask me the 11 questions, and I'm going to give you my honest answer to each of them.
Yeah, the answer to number 9 on here is a lie, or you wouldn't come back broke.
What are you
Friday.
surprisingly good at? Oh, I put 9-ball pool and hold'em poker.
Yeah.
That's true.
All right, so
here are the actual questions asked by our sales manager so as to give the sales team these are real, to give us a better feeling for who we are, and these are what my answers should have been. Go.
What was your first job in the radio industry?
My first job in the radio industry was trying not to be fired from my part-time job.
What's the most inspiring part of your job?
Every day I get up in the morning and I try to not get fired from my job.
What's the best advice you've ever been given about not being fired?
Do not do anything. Do not do anything that will get you fired from your radio job. Number 4.
What keeps you busy outside of the studio?
Not getting fired from my radio job.
If you were a superhero, what would your superpower be?
Not getting fired from my radio job.
What are you passionate about professionally?
Not getting fired.
What are you passionate about personally?
Not getting fired.
What's your biggest accomplishment?
Not getting fired from my radio job.
What are you surprisingly good at?
Not getting fired. I'm as surprised as anybody.
What one thing is on your bucket list?
To not get fired from my radio job.
And finally, what do you want? What do you most want to be remembered for?
I hated that Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, but I'll tell you, they never fired him. I give a full credit and hat tip. I read Erica these questions, and last night, after I'd finished them, I'd filled everything out, and she said, why didn't you just say, I don't want to be fired? That's the proper answer to and I was like, you're right.
She's not
wrong.
Oh, that's so good.
I think my gross. There's a lot of gross answers here. I think the grossest is, what's the one thing on your bucket list?
To visit all 50 states.
Yeah.
Ugh, I feel gross. Oh,
Gosh.
jeez. I wonder if Brian. I bet Wilson didn't even fill this out. I bet Wilson just
Threw it in the garbage.
gave it the old.
After all the time he's been here, if they have to ask.
Right. Like, what do you want to know? I'm on the radio 4 hours a day. What? Here, I don't know. Listen.
You could have asked me at the Christmas party, except we don't have them.
Brian Wilson's coming up next to tell us all about his biographical resume right after this. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm about wrapping up my time today, but before I get out of here, I get an opportunity to be the first to speak with the one and only Brian Wilson of The Drive, who's coming up in mere moments. Hey, Brian, how's it going?
Hey, it's going well today. This is the third anniversary for me and Cabana Wife.
Oh, all right.
And I just, we got married on a cliff overlooking the Palo Duro Canyon in the state of Texas and the Texas Panhandle, and it was a beautiful day, and somebody just posted a picture where we're looking out over the canyon, and the picture's taken from behind. And I was stunned, shocked, and amazed. And I wrote, "Who is that fat boy sitting next to my wife?"
Man, oh man!
Because I was about 70 pounds heavier at that point. And,
well, I wouldn't.
I didn't even recognize myself.
Well, I wouldn't wish on you the manner in which you lost the weight, but it has to. I mean, now that some of that has subsided, it's got to feel great to have it off. I mean,
I feel better than I've felt probably in 15 years, and really, honestly, it was shocking to see that picture today, because I certainly don't look like that now. But boy, what was that a shock! But again, not to lose sight of, it's my third anniversary.
Well, happy anniversary. I am certain that this will come up. And please do me a favor, Brian, and tell the story of how you came to be married. Tell the story of your effort to marry on 10/10/2020, because you've told
at 10:10 in the morning.
That's right. You've told me this story, and it was not just as easy as saying I do at 10:10 in the morning. So I hope you get a chance to tell the story.
You're right. We'll tell the story. All right, good. And of course, we'll give you all the latest on what's happening with Israel. There is a lot to cover. The president has spoken. The press conference has occurred there at the White House. We've got a lot of ground to cover.
Brian Wilson in The Drive coming up in mere moments right after Mac Morey and the top of the hour news. We're back tomorrow at high noon. Until then, have a wonderful afternoon. Hug the ones you love. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. So long.